This webcam looks so weird. This replacement one that I found just kind of lying around because the other one broke. Recommend good webcams in the comments, I guess. It's really annoying trying to find decent products for any category of thing related to what I do because it's always full, like YouTube and other platforms are just completely astroturfed by like paid influencers that just recommend nonsense, which is how I got the last terrible camera. I guess the ideal way of doing a channel like this is usually to set up a DSLR on a tripod that then is hooked into your computer via like an HDMI out or something, and you can use an entire expensive camera and lighting rig pointed at you to do that. I guess that's how a lot of people do this, which is wild. That's a huge pain in the ass. I don't even know where I'd put the camera. Like, how would I frame the shot? Where would it physically go? It's the kind of thing I should probably be figuring out, but it's just dealing with everything else all the time. Anyway, decently timed for the video I planned to make today. We actually just got fan art today of, since November, my last free visual novel that I made for November last year's Game Jam, which this looks absolutely wild. It's only the top half of the image. There's more. We don't have to scroll down. It's fine. This is made by Bastard by Design on Blue Sky. Absolutely wild. But in the meantime, we're working on our new game. This is new art by Phwog. This has been an experience. So I once again, just like last year, just kind of committed to a game jam on a whim. I'm just like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it, which is like the approach I had last time. And similarly, I'm just like, you just got to commit to the narrative that you had in mind at the beginning. You're just making that now. No takey backsies because time's already ticking. And the arrangement and the plan and so on. This time around, I went in with the plan to co-write it with Ka, our dungeon master over at Null Playing Games. I didn't know how that would go. I don't know how co-writing works. People just talk about having co-writers, and I'm like, cool, that's interesting. That's probably really helpful in some cases. I kind of thought it'd be really helpful in like an ADHD kind of way for being able to stay on task. I kind of thought it'd be helpful from a creative standpoint to be able to like bounce off ideas, and like I kind of imagined that you would just like sit there and write the whole thing together while talking it out. But in practice, when we met up when we tried having meetings at the beginning of this month, I kind of just didn't know what to do with it or how to interact with that, and couldn't really think creatively because all I'm thinking about the whole time is how there's just another person here, and I'm just engaging with that. And I don't know, maybe we're both just like writing bottoms and no one knew how to like direct and guide the meeting or something, but it just didn't really amount to much. So we've instead pivoted to just kind of writing the entire visual novel in piecemeal separately and just checking in periodically about like the stuff that we've done over time. Mixed results. The good news is a bunch of writing is getting done. The bad news is I feel like you can definitely tell who is writing each section of the game. So that's going to require, I think, its own editing pass to like go over it again and figure out how to make it sound like it's not changing writers every other scene. But right now we're still trying to work on getting a first draft in, which is its own kind of stressor. I'm like, okay, we're 2 weeks into the jam. We're halfway in and the first draft is not done yet because this is a longer story in both ways. It doesn't have branches, so it's all one continuous story this time instead of a bunch of short, separate vignettes that all branch and don't have to have continuity with each other. And it's just also definitely going to be like 50% to 100% longer than the last visual novel I made. Just kind of like what the story that I planned out for kind of is fleshing out to be. The good news is I had a plan at the beginning. So like I knew what the shape of the story would be. I knew vaguely what would happen each day. I had an ending in mind. I had a premise in mind. I had a few things that I wanted to say and so on. So that's been pretty clean. And that's allowed us to just kind of hop around and write whatever we think we can make progress on a given day, because that's part of the experience, is just being like, I don't know, man. Gotta write something. There's probably some people out there that write linearly. I do not write linearly. I do not write from the beginning of a story to the end of a story. I both with my video essays and my fiction, I kind of just hop around and write whichever part currently interests me, or I currently have an idea for, or that I want to get down before I lose it or something like that. And in the case of Since November, I had those endings in mind, so I actually wrote all of those endings first. And I talked about this in my video essay type thing, or a video on my video essay channel that was about this, how to make a furry visual novel in 30 days, where I talked about my approach being that like I have to make that entire story really quickly. So I started with the endings I had in mind and wrote those scenes, and then hoped that that would result in me finding the voice of each character or have an idea of how they'd behave in general. And then I wrote backwards the scenes where that would have two characters interacting with each other. And then I got all the way to the beginning, which I thought was the hardest part to write, which is, at least at going into, I figured would be the hardest part to write, which is writing scenes where all of the characters are interacting at once and how they would behave. And that was just, it seemed easier to me to try to do that after I knew what they were all up to and so on. This one I don't really have a specific methodology. I really am just kind of hopping to whatever scene I happen to be, just feel like I'm ready to write that day, and trying to pick away at that. It's a 3-day story, and I've been mostly writing day 2 and everything surrounding day 2, which has been mostly this guy here. And I'm having fun with that, but I'm also in a constant state of crisis where I'm like, I don't know if my entire premise is a good idea. And I don't know if the individual ideas of how to spend each day are compelling. I never am sure where the line is where something is interesting and maybe honest and like getting at something versus just being like embarrassing in some way or something like that. It's been interesting trying to rate this thing. It's also been very different because my last story was upsetting, and this one might upset people in some ways at some points, but no one's gonna die in this visual novel. The stakes are extremely low, but that means I need to write without, I don't have like a plot driving things the same way though you would in like genre fiction. It's not like horror or sci-fi or a thriller where there's like action happening and this drives the thing. It really is like kind of more traditional to what a lot of people try to make in furry visual novels. And there's a reason why there's such a variable quality here, because it's actually really hard to write something that isn't plot driven and like have that be compelling and figure out what the audience wants and so on. I'm trying my best to do what I can in the time that I have, but I also don't know where the lines are for audiences and whether or not they will like the particular directions I take things in and so on. It's this sounds pretentious, so let me preface it by saying that I don't mean it that way, but I'm kind of writing something that's like unlike anything I've seen in the genre. Not in like a clever meta subversive way or anything like that. I'm not putting myself on a pedestal for doing anything clever and weird. It's not some sort of weird genius thing or anything. This is like, I know people always take away the fucking, people quote me so much all the time on my Ad Astra video where I said that it's like I'm like, it's kind of like a reverse dating sim, huh? And people like take that to make me as if I think Ad Astra is like a genius story in a Doki Doki Literature Club sort of way. And I'm like, that's not really what I was going at. I just kind of was making an observation that I found kind of interesting in the moment. And like, so like this one kind of rides a line where it's like, it's kind of the stereotypical furry visual novel thing while also having an entire premise and setting and a lot of elements that are like completely outside of anything I've seen in the genre so far, despite also being extremely mundane. So like, I don't want to overhype it like I'm like thought of something crazy. It genuinely is a relatively straightforward, that surprising, it's more like it's surprising that I've never seen quite this kind of device used, or like this kind of like approach of like, let's tell a story about this thing with furry. But we'll see about that, because everyone might just hate it, and that might be why no one ever does it. I definitely have written some stuff that I think is very funny, but I also read through it and I do see a bunch of both of us just being funny a lot, and I'm like, we'll see how much of that survives editing. Just the combination of like, is there a certain density of jokes and whatnot where it becomes overkill? And also, I always think about like when I'm making video essays that I'll have jokes in every video essay that I script, and then a second layer of jokes that kind of gets in when I'm editing the video and I'm just kind of bored editing the video. But in particular, a lot of my scripted jokes where I say something that's meant to be funny tend to get cut from the video, either because while I'm saying it for the performance part, I can't bring myself to actually commit to it. I'm like, this sucks. I don't like this one. We're just gonna skip it. And then other times I'm editing the video and I'm like, I don't like that joke anymore. And when you have to write the joke and then have that joke survive several drafts of a video essay, and then perform the joke and have it survive you performing it multiple times to get a good take, and then you have to edit it, hearing yourself say it over and over again. There's so many chances for that to just not seem funny to you anymore, in a way that's not necessarily accurate, but just like I can't. I'm losing confidence in this, and you end up cutting the joke. So we'll see how many things that I think were funny last week that I still think are funny next week. But we're halfway through the jam. Phwog is pulling in like crazy. So we had the artist that we had since November is back, and he just got back to us with sprites for the entire cast, basically. So he's already ready to then pivot to going towards CGs and so on. I don't want to sit here and show everybody off immediately or anything. Like this is our little teaser, but yeah, the game's coming together. I just have to. So I guess we're doing like a sort of like a progress report video or something. It's just stressful. It's you're creating under a time limit. You're trying to get the thing out. You're constantly second guessing your ideas, but also having to commit to them anyway, because you just have to keep moving forward in order to get the thing done in time. And that's kind of maybe freeing in a way, because you get to just make the thing, and you don't get to question whether or not you should start over or whether the whole idea was good or not, because you just got to commit to making the thing. And then I can go hate it later if I hate it later, or maybe people will like it or so on. I have no idea. I'm all over the place on what the standards are for myself in general, and also like what visual novel readers expect most of the time, and what they like, and what their like bar is for writing and so on. Because yeah, it's intimidating to do projects like these when you just have not done that much. There are a few seasoned authors in the visual novel space, and they ironically are not usually ones that are very popular within the field, but those are the people that actually like have written a bunch and have experience to draw from, and can reliably make quality stuff. And everyone else is just kind of a bunch of amateurs just kind of hopping in and just giving it a go, and that's exactly what I'm doing. And we're just gonna have to hope for the best. Today I'm kind of taking a day off. I've been going to basically every my daily routine is basically I go to the gym, and then I eat breakfast, and then I just pack up my iPad and the portable keyboard I have for it, and I go to either a public library nearby or like a Panera Bread, because I guess Starbucks, on top of the fact that there's like a boycott right now, I think it's still happening. Starbucks used to be like the idea of like, oh, it's a coffee shop. You come here to like write and work and so on. I think they've largely removed their seating and largely have become like hostile to customers in a way. They really expect you just to get to buy things and leave. But Panera Bread, I'm seeing, is like just a ton of seating, and tons of people are there with their laptops. Like it's explicitly what a lot of people do there. So just come by and get a sandwich and a coffee and just hang out and write for like 4 hours. And it's not really a problem, because if anything, the place is usually like thinning out over the course of me being there. Like there is not competition for seating. It is fine. So I don't really feel bad about that. There's less space at the library, but it's explicitly what a library is for reading and writing and so on. So just take a seat, hang out and just sit there and tick a tack right in my lap, and try to get through. My goal every day is to get 1,000 words down, approximately. I'm never quite sure if I hit that or not, because sometimes Ka is editing the same document at the same time, and I don't know if my estimated word count I'm aiming for might be influenced by somebody else writing some other stuff, or me writing notes about things might kill things up. You know, it's a vague goal because you're just like gung-ho to try and get through this. So sometimes you just let it fly. You're just like, well, here's the dumb idea that came to mind. We're just gonna start writing it now, and just try to just figure out like how to make dialogue flow, try to pace this out. I'm hoping that within the next week we can have the story drafted out. Hopefully within the next few days, honestly, because we really do need to get to the stage where we can put it in front of a couple people and see what they think about the story, and then we can revise the whole thing, trying to like massage any of the writing that just kind of sounds weird for between like two people making a bunch of choices separately from each other and having their own writing style, but also having to deal with like the continuity of like writing non-linearly, and also making decisions about what kind of characters people are in real time. So we need to go back and like fix every inconsistency about the characters or setting that happened, because we went in with a plan, but then when you're writing the scene, you're like, they should go to this kind of place. And then you're like, okay, well that makes some dialogue not make sense here and there, and we have to go back and fix those things. But it's good. It's good to be committing and seeing how it goes. And the goal is just to have a version that we can turn in for the game jam. But ultimately, a month later, we could put out a revised script that resolves any lingering things that bother me in the long term. So like the goal is to put something out in time, but just like I said in last year's video about this stuff, you really don't have to be done. The fun thing about a game jam is the fact that the stakes are really low and made up. In this case, there's not even like an award or a reward or like a prize. I mean, it really is just a thing you do and you commit to within a particular time window. And it's good to have that cutoff point, because it's a self-inflicted deadline, and that's part of why I'm able to work on it, is because I know there's supposed to be an end goal at least, and so I can like really be fixated on this thing. But also like it's kind of like a handshake agreement with you and the people you're working with, that like, yeah, we're all going to spend this month on this thing, and that end point is the goal, so we know that we're supposed to be able to move on at that point, is the idea. And so that's kind of the hope for a lot of this stuff. So we'll see. I just want to make a good thing, because it would suck to commit to a month and then make a thing that isn't good, is basically. I'm also a little stressed out because this is the sophomore attempt. So I'm reminded of like how I made video essays, and the first few I made surprisingly quickly. The Beastars one I worked on for like 7 months, but in that time I sometimes pivoted to make another thing, and I'd make that in like in a few weeks. But then once I had an audience on that channel, it was so much harder to write for that channel because of the amount of scrutiny it has. And I had a similar experience with Since November, where I participated in a jam, and amongst the contestants or participants, I did on some level get like disproportionate scrutiny, which is inevitable because I have like an audience and a platform, and so I am loud by existing at this point. And I didn't like participate like anonymously or anything. In fact, I made content about it. But that does mean that I've read so many opinions about my writing, and which could be a blessing, but it also can just like stress you out when you're just like, I don't always take a mountain of feedback well, because I just get anxious about everything, I guess. But yeah, we're hopefully we'll have a version of a story that you can read in about 2 weeks, and we'll revise it if we need to. But this time, ironically, for all I know, the art might be final and the writing isn't this time, whereas last time the writing was pretty much final, but the art wasn't final yet. So we put out an update months later with the missing CGs. This time around, I'm like, it's a big story, and I feel like it might take a few attempts to finish it. But it's good to be making something. I do like, there are definitely upsides to this, and I'm even kind of maybe ironing out methodology for writing in my new environment that I live in, about where I can go and what I can do to make myself write that might even help me with getting back on track with the video essays, where I've been struggling to get anything done there. Because yeah, the good news is that I currently have a bedroom and an office separately at this house, but that hasn't necessarily amounted to me writing more. It's helped with other elements of sleeping and working and so on. That's made my life better, but hasn't always amounted to things working out otherwise with just my creative goals. So it might be that like, okay, here's the kind of third places that I can try to go to now that I live in a bigger city, that where I can like commit to writing. Because there's definitely an element of like, there's definitely a lot of value to putting yourself in a different space to work, where you're isolated from a lot of distractions, you're isolated from your ability to just like wander off and procrastinate and do something else. You kind of have to like trap yourself in a boring place that takes effort to get to, or at least I have to, it seems like, where I get in a car and I drive to another place and I go sit down to write in that place. And it's like, it kind of does put me in a different space where I can actually kind of do that. And so it's the downside of working from home, is that I don't have a separate space I'm going to that conditions me in the ways that I used to when I would like go to school and go to college. Like the idea of like going to college, doing your classes, and then going to the student union in the time between the classes to work on your projects and stuff like that. And like be like, we're in school space and I'm in school mode and we're working. And like that kind of focus is really hard to re-achieve at times. And maybe it's a thing that could be helped by a diagnosis here and there. Maybe it's not, but like that's kind of the things I've been grappling with overall. So closing statement, I guess. Here's our punk guy. I would like, if you made it this far, if you are a punk of the leftist orientation and all that, that was a weird sentence. I would love feedback on what goes on a battle jacket, because we're trying to get this guy's design down, but none of us own or wear battle jackets, and we're trying to figure out what goes on here. We've also had some anxiety induced upon us by finding out that there's a whole subreddit dedicated to bad battle jackets, and I'm like, oh great, there's opinions, great. This makes it even harder to write this thing that I don't know that well. And I say leftist punk, I know that's kind of like redundant, but there are people in the comments who won't really know what punk is because they think that it's the version of punk that's been sanitized and defanged by American pop culture, which is just the vague concept of an edgy guy with a mohawk and piercings. And I think that the American pop culture concept of a punk is apolitical, which is unhinged, because like punk is very much a political stance. Like that is not just the vague concept of being edgy. That is fundamentally not what it is, as far as I can understand. But we're trying to figure out what to actually put on this guy's stuff, and it's been a bit of a struggle because we're out of our element as writers, and our artist isn't even from the same country. So the cultural understanding is not quite there. It's interesting trying to fill out an ensemble of characters from completely different things and get their signifiers down, especially when you then make the mistake of writing a character who specifically covers themselves in signifiers. So I'd love to hear some feedback in the comments about what kind of stuff to put there. But specifically, I'm looking for people who agree with each other, that seem to know what they're talking about, because any individual can confidently state nonsense, and I don't know if I can trust them. But if there's like consensus on some level, then I'm like, okay, maybe these people collectively know what they're talking about. Otherwise, I'll just disregard it and just go back to trying to research this stuff on my own. But yeah, just rambling at this point. Just kind of wanted to check in mid-month about the thing that I'm stressed about all month. It's all I'm thinking about most of the time. I kind of hop on to play like 2 hours of Clair Obscur every now and then to just kind of keep my work limping along on the Let's Play channel. I have not been touching the subsequent playthroughs of Silent Hill F or Not a Human in this month lately, which has turned out to be good news, because Silent Hill F got a big update apparently that makes subsequent playthroughs shorter and less of a pain in the ass, which was what I was worried about, is that there's such a combat gauntlet in that game that I was like, this isn't going to be really lame to play this game like for the 5 endings? What? That's going to get really old, right? Because the first playthrough was getting old the first time. So that's good news that there's updates. If you're looking for subsequent playthroughs of those games in the future, There might be a gap where I air something else first, just because I'm doing the game jam right now and trying to write a game. So I poke at Clair Obscur every now and then, but otherwise I'm not recording that many games. Everything else is on hold, so I don't have the backlog being generated. So I'll probably air something else first, then get back to those games as soon as I'm done with this project, hopefully. And yeah, I'm happy to commit to this, but it is another month of working on a big project that is then me continuing to not do anything for visual novels, so for video essays. So I guess that's just more. This whole year's just been a wash for video essays for me. It just didn't work out. It sucks. I went into the beginning of this year hoping to get 6 done. I wanted to like try to figure out how to do one every other month, even if they were shorter, and I just completely washed out. I definitely wrote like 80% of several video essays, so I just need to figure my shit out. But it is genuinely hard after a move and a bunch of time off, when you're just working on other things, to then come back to a thing and have to like reread it all and reassess where you are and where you were going. And like saying you're 80% done can still be a huge problem when you lose the momentum in the headspace and the continuity of thought of what you were working on, and you have to like pick up the pieces like an archaeologist figuring out what the fuck this document is that you have lying around. Writing is tough like that. Like you can't just like look at an old drawing and be like, oh, that's what I would do next in this drawing, because you can look at it, you can see a whole drawing in a moment. There's details, but like, you know, overall you can see it, like this one right here, and be like, oh yeah, see, green spots, gotta fill in those missing, we gotta fill in some more missing buttons, obviously. But when in writing, it's like it takes you like 2 hours just to read the thing you have so far, and then you have to think about all that for a week just to figure out where you're going with it. Bring back 10-minute video essays by Every Frame of Painting and Lindsay Ellis. Remember when they were 10 minutes long? Now that's a document you can read and write in a day. These fucking hour-long things are so hard to hold in your head. Anyway, I'm gonna stop procrastinating and get back to work. Today, my goal is I'm taking a day off from writing. I've been writing every single day this month and really committing to it as best as I can. But today I'm taking a day off of writing because Phwog got the sprites in, and I'm like, oh, I got to give him more direction, right? Because I don't want him to like be flying blind and just like just woefully misinterpret my bad instructions for a thing or something. So today I'm going to try to storyboard all of the CGs to the best of my ability, just to like give an indication of like what we're going for with each one, and hopefully that leads to no wasted labor and mistakes in the future and so on. Would be good to see. And yeah, see you guys next time.